having me. So I work a lot on our CLI agent, so you're going to end up seeing a terminal agent, based presentation today. But Augment Code is a coding assistant. You might be very familiar with that space. We offer not just the CLI, but also VS Code and JetBrains extension. So no matter what your team is building in, you can use Augment. But before we dive into the demo, I really want to kind of talk about a couple things. I can kind of see out there, but raise your hand if this sentiment resonates with you. If you've heard someone utter it, maybe you've uttered it yourself. It's okay, it's a safe space. I've thought this. And I find this very provocative. I find that developers have struggled with finding AI to solve the problems the way they would want to solve them. And people that are my peers have really struggled to adopt AI in a way that we have not struggled to adopt any number of other technical shifts that have happened. Every programming language that shows up is like, great, let's do a rewrite. But somehow AI has not followed that same pattern. And so I think it's worth inspecting a little bit about why we think this and why junior engineer, what makes a junior engineer and really how to code not like a junior engineer. So first and foremost, obviously, you want to know what you're building, right? After that, I've got to know my experience as a senior engineer is that I have hours and hours of context that I have built up over the years. I oftentimes will spend 4 hours reading and documentation and code just to make a 10-minute change, but it takes me many, many hours. Then I've got to write the code. And then I have all these tools that we've built up over the years to make sure that I can make those changes safely, right? I've never one-shot at a piece of code in my life. I have LSPs to solve that problem. I have my linters to solve that problem. All these things help me write better code. But somehow, when we decided to start using AI to write code, we're like, don't give them any of that. Give them none of that. They should be able to write perfect code to begin with. Why we believe that, I'm not sure. But I want to dive into one thing that I think is the most important, that thing we spend the most time on, is that context. Before we do that, I'm going to kick off Augment. If you've never seen Augment, this is CLI. I was working on a feature where I want to be able to customize the status bar you see on the bottom. I want to be able to configure what that looks like. I built some of it yesterday, and today I want to be able to put whatever my current Git branch is inside of that. So here's this. I'm going to first, actually, before I just hit enter, I'm going to use our prompt enhancer, which actually takes my current prompt and then actually just makes it better. It's that first step of actually make a better prompt. And so you can see what happens is Augment goes and grabs context from your code base already and then sort of fleshes out what I actually need. So let's go ahead and kick this off. It's going to run for a few minutes. We're not going to sit here and watch text fly by. That's not that interesting. But I just want to make sure it gets going before we move on. Great. Internet's working. So we'll come back to this. Context engines. So Augment was founded on the idea that large code bases have unique problems. And so we built an index system that takes your code base, puts it in a vector database, and we're not talking off-the-shelf RAG here, and uses agentic search to really find the problems in your code base. Not just the call sites of every symbol that exists, not all the different. That's pretty easy. grep will solve that problem for you. This is talking about semantic search of your code base. Because most of the time, our code doesn't always follow a grep pattern. It looks like patterns we want to replicate over the time, or in some cases, not want to replicate because it's 10 years old. And so having a deep understanding of the code base is just about everything that matters in writing code. And so let's hop back over and see how Augie's doing. I'm pretty sure it probably won't finish in the 2 minutes I have left, but I do want to highlight a few things. So you can see the tools that we're running is our context engine right in the middle. Instead of just grepping files, it's actually using natural language to do agentic search across our index. That's going to give us a lot more information about your code than anything else. Then it's going to make changes just like many of the other coding assistants will do over time. I ran this same problem against Claude Code, and a core difference between the version that when I was prototyping this versus Claude ran 40-ish tools, about 40,000 tokens, and grepped around the file. The thing it didn't do is really understand code that already existed in our code base. You might see here in a second that it's going to pull in some libraries that we already got Git functionality built in. We have libraries that we use, make sure that we have that functionality. When Claude built the same feature, it compiled, it worked. I'm not saying it didn't. But what it did do is just spawn off a Git process, which is technically fine, But there's a problem with that. What happens when that piece of code really matters, when that code needs to be managed or reused for very particular reasons? So something that's really important about writing code is that the best code is probably no code at all. So when our LLMs and our teams just generate new code, and we don't have that context of that this thing exists way over there, we sort of add liability to our systems, right? And so as an engineer, I generally want no code at all. I want to be able to reuse the code that I do have. And so that's just what context can provide me, because I oftentimes don't know that exists. I might just rewrite that get function. I'm going to skip this for a second, but I would love to be able to talk to you all about soapboxes on AI and why software engineers are not pulling it up. I'm happy to give you a full-blown demo in our booth, and thank you for your time.